Hello, welcome to Chapter 4, the final essay of our semester. Considering that this is the final paper of the semester, and as such should be the very best work you're capable of doing, I want to open up the subject area beyond Chapter 4. You can choose your own topic for this assignment, but it must be developed as an argument based in research about something connected to monsters. For example, now you can choose to write on any of the making connection questions from chapter 4. Okay, so you can kind of go through all the readings in chapter 4, take a look at all the making connection questions, and choose one of those. Okay. Or you can choose to research and investigate a monster that has not been talked about this semester. You might particularly look at a monster from a non-Western tradition that has been overlooked. Argue how that monster reflects its time and place of origin. Or choose a monster that has been recorded in many different cultures and places throughout history and examine its different manifestations. In other words, how does it appear? How does it show up? What do those different manifestations reflect about the cultures from which they come? Such monsters could include dragons, vampires, witches, which can be, by the way, male or female, werepeople. Okay, so we talk about werewolves, of course, but there are stories, myths of people turning into other animals besides the wolf. Mirror people. Okay, we've talked about mermaids in chapter 3, but a lot of cultures have stories of mere people. In other words, both men and women who are living in the ocean or any other such creature. So, in other words, I'm talking about a creature which shows up around the world. There may be slight differences, of course, that's what makes them interesting. Or find a topic of your own choosing that I haven't presented that seems appropriate for this assignment. Now, I do have a caveat, a warning. If you choose this topic, you must communicate with me by Friday, July 31st. That's this Friday, okay? To make sure the topic is acceptable for the assignment. Okay, so, and I'm not going to allow for excessively metaphorical topics. In other words, if you're going to say cigarettes are bad for your health and they're a monster, I'm not going to take that. That's like, no, I don't think so. We're not doing that paper. Okay. So you need to talk to me about it. Send me an email, send me a message by Friday. And I say by Friday, although remember, this is going to be actually due, this thesis outline is going to be due Friday at midnight. So you really want to get it to me earlier if you can. Now, the final research paper is due on Friday, August the 7th by 11:59. Now, typically all semester long, we've had the whole weekend to finish up our final draft, right? They've been due on Monday at 11:59. But this is the end of the semester, and we really can't go any further because this is it, right? So it does tighten up a bit. Be sure to follow the out-of-class essay guidelines for matters of form and style. Now, some of you are still maybe not clear on the guidelines, right? They're in the introductory module. So you want to go back, make sure that you read what's in there, okay? Because some of the stuff that I've been seeing is a clear violation of the guidelines, and that's going to hurt. Be sure to include a word count at the end of your essay, all right? You must meet minimum requirements. We'll look at those in just a minute, including word count, sources, and subject matter. No late essays will be accepted. This is it, guys. This is the end. You come in and try to deliver an essay to me after the semester is over, it's not going to be accepted. Forget it. Now, submit a thesis outline to Canvas by Friday, July 31st. Right, that's this Friday, 11:59 p.m. Please have MLA citation entries for 4 of your sources. 4 sources. None of these sources should be from the textbook, okay? In other words, you are showing that you are doing research and you are getting good sources. A participation grade will be assigned for this. Now, as always, we will make up new peer editing groups. You'll submit your rough drafts next week on Wednesday, August the 5th. Remember, it goes to your work group and it comes to me. Now, typically we've had 2 days for the peer edits. That is not going to be the case. We only have 1 day for peer edits, right? It's all jammed up here at the end of the semester. Submit completed peer editing sheets to your Canvas work group and to me by Thursday, August the 6th, 11:59 p.m. Now, let's just take a peek at these minimum requirements. Now, as I said in the announcement, I bumped up the requirements with the words. 1,500 to approximately 2,000 words. So we're writing a bigger paper. Okay. Now, some of you have already been writing close to 1,500 words. So this is not going to be a stretch for you, right? But some of you are still kind of getting to just 1,000. So basically 1,500 words. If you've been writing about 1,000-word essay, that means probably another page and a half. If you've been writing already 1,100, 1,200, then it's not nearly quite so much. Okay. But remember, the reason that we have these word counts is to allow you to really dig deeply into your topic. So whatever topic you choose, right, remember, it's narrow and deep, not broad and superficial. Go narrow and deep, explore your topic as much as you can. Don't expand it out, okay? Now we still need a strong essay structure, including the introduction, concession, rebuttal arguments, main body, conclusion, right? We might have, let's say, instead of having 6 paragraphs, maybe now we have 8 paragraphs, something of that sort. You need to have at least 8 sources in total, okay? Which is, again, a little bit more than what we've had. 6 of which originate in print or have print analogs. At least 4 of which are dissertations, peer-reviewed journal articles, or excerpts from university press books. So in other words, we're looking for some scholarly work, right? Our textbook does not count towards this, okay? You can use the textbook, but it doesn't count towards your 8, okay? And as always, MLA format for all documentation, including in-text citations and works cited. So what I'd like to do is just briefly go through what's in chapter 4, because most of you will write on one of the making connection questions. Now, chapter 4, what is the power of the monster? And power comes in multiple forms. We're used to ideas like physical power, right? And that is kind of obvious if you look at a creature like Godzilla, right? And we've also seen other types of power in vampires, right? Magical powers in some of the cases, right? But power is often psychological, right? There's a certain sense that the monster holds a psychological edge too. Now, in the first piece that we read in this chapter, it's called Thesis 6, Fear the Monster is Really a Kind of Desire by Jeffrey Jerome Cohen. Now, that name may be familiar to some of you because some of you have indeed already cited Jeffrey Jerome Cohen. Maybe not from the part that's in our textbook, but from his larger work, Monster Culture, 7 Theses. So in our book, we have Thesis 6, Fear of the monster is really a kind of a desire. And in this, it's a very intense chapter, by the way. I mean, it's a very intense thesis, I should say, in how he explains it. But ultimately, the monster is different from us because the monster plays by no rules at all. We have rules. Sometimes, even when we're breaking the rules, we're very conscious of the fact that that's what we're doing, breaking rules. But the monster has freedom in ways that we can't even imagine because it doesn't have those boundaries. Howling Horror of Werewolves by Daniel Loxton is the next piece. It is, of course, about werewolves. It's actually very thorough, and there's a lot going on in here. But the monster of the werewolf is very old, very, very old, in fact. The idea that we people, civilized people, may still turn into a monster and turn into an animalistic type monster, right? It's, ever since we started walking upright and separating ourselves from other creatures and wearing clothes and getting body art and things like that have signified a difference from the animal world, there's always been this push me, pull you, taking us back. Neparibo and the Fear of Nothingness by Kylie Fox goes to Japan for the world of the yokai. We've already been somewhat introduced to this, but this continues this discussion really. The faceless monster, right? No face. Robert Louis Stevenson, the famous writer, one of the things that he wrote was a story called The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Okay, the story of a double, one good, one evil. They're the same. So we have in our textbook an excerpt of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Read it carefully and think about this idea of the double and how convenient it would be if it could just say, oh, that wasn't really me. I didn't really do that horrible thing. That was the evil me, right? Who isn't really me. But of course, maybe it really is you. Rodrigo Silva Guedes continues on with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in the monster as a metaphor. Again, this idea that we want to create this other, a different place, a different person, a different thing to be responsible when we do something bad, we do something wrong. A Quiet Place, Monsters Explained by John Krasinski by Adam Chitwood. If you have seen the movie, if you like the movie, you might want to check this one out, right? I love The Quiet Place. I thought it was a very inventive film. Monsters, the alien monsters in A Quiet Place, don't see anything, but they hear. And if they hear something, they attack it with a speed and ferocity that can't be stopped. It's really quite terrifying. And lastly is The Lure of Horror by Christian Jarrett. Again, one of our end pieces. A lot of our final pieces in these chapters have been kind of a way to conclude the idea about horror. And in this case, right, again, kind of asking that question that we've been asking since the very start. Why do we need monsters? What do they do for us? Right? There's something going on with the monster. It is lure, it's attraction, right? And sometimes, maybe it's because we're so used to being on top of the world as human beings that we need to be reminded, maybe humbled sometimes, in the idea that maybe we're not always in control.